I'm Marcus Benjamin bringing you the Benjamin Report here from Hard Rock Stadium here in Miami Gardens, where your Miami Hurricanes defeated Bethune Cookman 48-7. Now, this wasn't a surprise by any stretch. I mean, Miami was favored by over 50 points to win this game. They didn't cover, so somewhat of a concern, I guess, but not really because, Miami played a bunch of young players in this game, especially towards the end. And Coach Cristobal is actually friends with the opposing head coach, Raymond Woody. They work together at Oregon, so it's not like he was going to run up the score in this one. And we got to see a lot of young guys, like I said. But first, let's really talk about the players that we didn't see in this one. When I first got to the field pregame, I didn't see Nigel Kelly in uniform. Akeem Mesidor was not dressed. Also, Branson Dean, also not dressed in this one. Those are three starters on the defensive line, so there was some kind of concern going into this one. And, of course, their leader, their heart and soul of this defense, Cameron Kinchins, also did not play in this one. And Mark Fletcher, the young, talented freshman running back, also was not playing in this game, as well as Elijah Arroyo, which we kind of expected. Those players were not in uniform for this one. But although those key players were out, Miami didn't miss a beat. I mean, they scored on almost every drive in which Tyler Van Dyke, their quarterback, started the drive. They only didn't score on one of those drives, and they nearly scored on that one. If it wasn't for a Colby Young fumble at the goal line, Tyler Van Dyke would have scored on every drive. And the starting quarterback from Miami, TVD, was outstanding again in this one. He passed for 247 yards, scored a touchdown on the ground as well as 2 in the air. No interceptions. He just looked efficient, like he continues to be this season. And he reiterated that today in the press conference, just saying that he is playing his best ball of his career and that he's the best that he's ever been. He just looks really comfortable in this offense. He trusts offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. Dawson trusts him, and the receivers also trust Dawson and Tyler Van Dyke. This offense is absolutely clicking when all of the starters are in the game. Now, the defense looked pretty solid in this one as well. At one point, Bethune was averaging 0.4 yards a carry, less than a yard a carry, which is pretty good by any defense's standards. So I thought they were pretty solid for the most part. They knocked their quarterback out of the game in the first drive. And who was it that knocked him out? It was Ruben Bain, getting his first sack of his career and then knocking the Bethune quarterback out of the game. He is an absolute terror on the football field, and he continues to just wreak havoc in every aspect of his game. And it's just impressive just to kind of see his growth. And what he said today in the press conference is that one of the best things he ever did was becoming a Miami Hurricane. And that's great to hear for a fan or for a recruit as well, because let's face it, Miami has plenty of talent down here in South Florida. Today they landed a 5-star out of Miami Central, the alma mater of Ruben Bain. So the pipeline from the Miami powerhouses continues, and if they're going to produce just like Ruben Bain has done so far in his young 3-game career, then Miami fans will have a lot to be excited about. Another thing to be excited about, if you're a Hurricane fan in this one, was the running game. The running game was solid. Even without Mark Fletcher, This running game ran for nearly 400 yards in this game, well over 300, and with minimal carries, almost averaging, I think, around 8 yards per carry in this one. They were efficient, these running backs. I mean, Don Chaney had some tremendous runs. I mean, on one drive, he had 4 straight carries, which led to a touchdown, 55 yards. It was just impressive to see. Didn't see a lot of Henry Parrish, nor do you really need to in a game like this, but you did see a lot of A.J. Allen in this one. He had the most carries and did score a couple times in this game. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. And also getting in the end zone was Christopher Johnson Jr., the true freshman. Got his first carry and got his first touchdown in this game. So really kind of happy for him. Don Chaney was really happy for him in the press conference to see his running mate get into the end zone in this game towards the end. As far as receivers concerned, X is that guy. X marks the spot when it comes to receivers. Xavier Restrepo was outstanding again. It's second straight game with over 100 yards receiving. He had 6 catches for 120. Still didn't get into the end zone yet. We know that's coming, but he just made tough catches, had yards after the catch. He was just your boy in this game if you are a Miami fan, because he catches the ball in traffic and he doesn't go down easily. He's a smaller receiver, but he's tough to bring down. Kobe Young, he had a decent game, but he had a couple of drops. I already talked about how he had a fumble at the goal line, kind of uncharacteristic of him. He's been pretty solid this season, but today something just didn't seem right about him in this game. But Jacoby George continues to be very, very impressive. He had almost an amazing catch on the sideline, dragging a toe, but he looked very impressive and is continuing to have a really, really impressive year. Those were really kind of the standouts on offense. And what you really saw in this game, though, is that you saw a lot of young guys, like I said, play. And you saw a lot of guys who were older, who have kind of been around, who weren't really getting any playing time. So it was kind of evident of how the coaching staff feels about certain guys. The fact that Frank Ladson didn't get into this game until way late. Robbie Washington, the true freshman wide receiver, had more production than Frank Ladson. Michael Redding was only in on special teams. Jaleel Skinner, we finally saw him get some action in this game, but it was later in the game. Riley Williams clearly outsnapped him. So it definitely seems like Jaleel Skinner is still maybe 4th on the depth chart when it comes to tight ends once Elijah Arroyo returns. And when it comes to the second unit of the offensive line, there were some moments where you felt like, wow, if this starting 5 of the offensive line goes down with an injury, you may feel a little bit nervous about the production of this offensive line and just the efficiency of it. Now, Matt Lee played a lot, which makes me think like, okay, well, maybe they don't really trust who is behind Matt Lee, which if all the offensive linemen were healthy, I'm thinking it's either, Louis Cristobal or Jonathan Dennis. So I don't think there's a lot of confidence in those guys behind, a Matt Lee. But we did see Matthew McCoy, of all the backups, he was the one who kind of got the most play. So he is definitely the first offensive lineman up if there is an injury. But I am still concerned about the depth, the overall depth of this offensive line. I think the defensive line did hold up despite the injuries that I mentioned, but it was evident that some players are backups for a reason. And I kind of mentioned some of those guys, but it definitely feels like a couple of injuries could hurt this team. And that's kind of what I saw towards the end of the game, where Miami was controlling this game throughout, and it wasn't until the end where Bethune did get into the end zone. The quarterback outran Cyrus Moss to the pylon. So I think a lot of young guys kind of flashed, although some of the, mid-tier players, disappointed a little bit to me. But I liked what I saw from Bobby Washington. I already mentioned what I liked from Christopher Johnson Jr. And Ray played decent from what I saw, but didn't really show a lot from what we already expect from the freshman. Tyler Harrell didn't really show much in this game, and he had some opportunities. Isaiah Horton got into this game, but didn't really show the flash that he showed in the Texas A&M game. So I think overall there's progress, just like Mario Cristobal says in every press conference. And I think there will continue to be progress with these young players. But you kind of want to see more development in some of these players that are kind of already on the team. Like I said, like a Jaleel Skinner, like a Frank Ladson, those type of players, I feel, are just following further along on the depth chart with these young guys, kind of, overtaking their spots. But overall, a very solid win. They did what they were supposed to do in this one, and now it's on to the next one. And they play their first road game of the season. This is their third straight home game to open up the season. But 3-0 is 3-0. And many maybe expected the team to be 3-0, like myself. But, it's just the way that they look. They go about it in a very business-like fashion, going 1-0 every week, and they treating every opponent the same. It's the same words that are being said by every player, and you like to see that. I think there won't be moments that disappoint you like last season from what you've seen after 3 games. So I'm excited to really see, what the future holds for this Miami Hurricanes football team. They travel to Philadelphia to play Temple. I expect that to be another result similar to these first 3 games, or maybe more so maybe not like the Texas A&M game, but more so like the Miami of Ohio game. I expect it to be that type of result when the final whistle is blown. But that's going to wrap it up for the Benjamin Report here from Hard Rock Stadium. Until next time.